Bon dia a tothom. Jo em dic Lana Bastašić i estic aquí amb Saša Stanišić, un col·lega escriptor, també de Bòsnia. I estem aquí per una xerrada que oferim des biblioteques de Barcelona, junts amb Angle Editorial i Periscopi Editorial. I estem aquí per parlar de les nostres dues novel·les, que també han sortit en català. La novel·la de Saša es diu Orígens i la meva novel·la Atrapa, llebre. El punt de partida és parlar una mica de l'experiència de la guerra en els Balcans, perquè les nostres novel·les parlen de manera diferent d'aquestes experiències, de la infància en aquells Balcans, però també què vol dir anar-se a un altre país, tornar, parlar una mica de la memòria, de la guerra i totes aquestes coses. També aprofitem per felicitar Saša, que ha guanyat el Premi del millor llibre en Alemanya, millor llibre alemany de 2019, i ara passem a parlar en anglès i no al serbo-croat. Okay, Saša. This is a very strange experience, no? Because we have to speak in another language, in English to Catalans. Normally,
yes, I think it's so many things come together. We both have a common first language, which we don't know each other. This is the first time I actually kind of talk to you in person. We have a common language to talk in, actually, and we'll definitely talk in this language. And now our books are in a third language, but we're talking. It's the way. It's about literature, maybe. So language is maybe even not really that important. Thank you for inviting us both.
Yes, thank you to Bibliotecas de Barcelona. And we don't have a moderator, so we're just gonna get into it and see where it takes us. I have to say, I recently finished your amazing novel, Herkunft. If that's
you learned a little bit German, right?
I'm now studying German, and I could really relate to your character. Well, I don't know if it's you, if it's a narrator, but let's say the narrator struggling with German. Yeah, but it's just a remarkable language. So, but let's not speak in German, please, because I think I can only say 3 sentences. And I just recently finished the book, and it was to me amazing that I was reading the translation. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you worked together with the translator. I was reading the Croatian edition because the language was very much alive and close to Bosnia and the way people talk, and it just brought me back to many things. And so maybe we could just start a bit with this languages and writing the book in German, then translating it back into your mother tongue. How did that go? And where is language in that book? Is it for you? I mean, obviously you won this huge award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
For the best German book in 2019. German as in language, because I think it's awarded for Austria, Switzerland, and Germany. Mm-hmm. But it's such a Yugoslav book.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
Definitely, it is. And the first question is maybe the question that I'm really curious about your answer to yourself, because right now we're talking because our books are translated into Catalan, and you speak, as I just noticed, you speak the language. I think you lived in Barcelona for quite some time. So as a writer, I believe that any kind of control around translation is good, but of course at the same time I know that we don't speak the languages. I could not help the Catalan translator a lot. I of course would answer her questions and make her work as easy as I can, and try to maybe kind of create an illusion of Serbo-Croat language in the Catalan. But for the Croatian version that you read, of course, my my a picture of my own language is still in my head, and when I write dialogues in German, I need to exercise it in order to make this German sound as close as it can be to our common tongue. So the translator has a hardest job, I think, the Croatian and the Bosnian translator, because they need now to retranslate my translation into German. And I think Anda Bukvic, that's the name of translator, has done a marvelous job. We agreed at the beginning of her translation that she will try to do not a Croatian version, meaning dialectal, little changes to the language, but will try to incorporate my childhood version of Bosnian dialect. So to make the reader, as you are, when the translations, once it's done, be as close as it can be. When I was reading your book, I was very envious of the elegance and elasticity and the closeness of the dialogues of your characters to the way we speak. I cannot create that in German. I just simply cannot say "oches." I cannot do that. There is no way.
Or "osh."
Osh, yes. There were some characters, like smaller characters, who just appear into the story and say a few sentences, but they are all, even they speak just a little bit, they are there in front of my eyes because the way they speak, the smallest levels of social, level where they come from, the guy who sells the rabbit, for example, how he speaks. And I'm really envious about, because I can try to do that in German. Of course, I can lower down the class of the person speaking, but those people live in Bosnia, and I can never, no matter what I do, hit exact this amount of closeness to the spoken language. So I'm really glad about Anda's translation. It's marvelously done, and I'm glad that you found a way through the book as you did.
Yeah, I mean, this reminded me of something that Nabokov was talking about, which is another writer who emigrated and then ended up writing in another language, which was not his mother tongue. And of course, he had this marvelously aestheticized prose, but he said, I can go on and on and on and describe, I don't know, the dawn. Yeah. But I cannot help somebody just explain how to get from point A to point B. Exactly. In English. So like the more common language gets, it's actually more difficult for a writer to go there. I mean, for me, I think even the biggest challenge when it came to translating or helping translators was to explain to them that sometimes I use words that are more Croatian dialect, sometimes I use words that are more Bosnian dialect. And then I had problems in Belgrade, of course, that the language was not purely Serbian. And this just for me was striking, that we are still talking about purity and actually we have seen all the atrocities that come from this obsession with purity. But yeah, our language, I feel like, especially in Bosnia, that our variant of Serbo-Croatian, or whatever we want to call it these days, is so alive. It's so full of this just linguistic ability, lexic, precisely because Bosnia has always been this multicultural place of all these different languages and people coming together and clashing. So it's not I think it's not a surprise that a lot of great literature it also comes from there. So let's maybe, for our viewers, to just explain a bit the background. So you are from Visegrad, which already in itself is a place full of cultural heritage, historical heritage, a lot of very powerful significance there. And obviously, if anybody has read Ivo Andrić, they are familiar with the town. And then in the 90s, really, really terrible things were done there, mostly by the Serbian military forces, basically just performing ethnic cleansing in the whole area. And you moved to Germany with your parents, and if I can, I don't know if you are the narrator, if it's mostly autobiographical, but your grandparents stayed in Bosnia.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you moved, you had to switch into another language, another set of codes that you just had to accept. So if you could talk a bit, because to me, this is one of the most interesting things about your book, when you talk about being the other in Germany, because first you come from a town in your hometown where suddenly your mother is the other.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's her hometown, even though it's her country, now all of a sudden she's not wanted there because she has a certain name, certain surname, and you don't feel welcome. And then you go somewhere else where again you're reminded you are not German,
Mm-hmm.
And you will never be German, no. And you have to look maybe for not such great jobs, and you cannot really look forward to your mother who finished college. She could not get a good job. So if you could tell us a bit about this state of otherness or always being on the margins somehow.
I'm really glad about that question, because when I read your book, it struck me that might be maybe the that theme that interests you the most too. Of course, your book is also about friendship and memory, childhood, and how we sometimes grow up also in senses of otherness, trying to meet the expectations of others, of society, of parents that they put on us even as children. And to grow into certain roles, and those two roles may be opposites of how a life can be lived. You have them for me in those two friends, and there was one scene that this will stay from your book for my whole life. I know it now. I'm telling you this because I think that will answer your question. I will try to answer your question from your book. The mother is supposed, all mothers or fathers, but in our societies, it's always the mothers that do that, unfortunately, are supposed to cut out a small paper figure for the first day of school. The children are coming to school and it's the first day of school, and there's a task, and they have to cut out little girls and boys of paper. Actually, the children are supposed to do this, but the controlling mother of Sarah wants that she doesn't want her daughter to be a cutout. She wants a daughter that she would like to have to be cut out. She wants to form, even though if it's just a schablonisch, like a schablon, she wants to form an identity before the identity is actually really formed, and to put it between all the others, which will look very similar. But then there is her, the other who does it herself probably, and she cuts out a plain white girl. And this is how actually it should be. We should have the complete control, even as children, with all our complex problems in our world, about how we see ourselves. And in our society in Yugoslavia in the 80s and 90s, it didn't become about who you are, but what you are. And you know that by yourself and your own story. And that defined my family, because we had this multi-ethnic mixture going between my parents, which means our families came together despite of the religious and ethnical differences, which are not really, they are constructed differences. So, and that's exactly what happened then in Germany, but not on the ethnicity side in a way that you got attacked by what you are, Serb or Croat or Muslim Bosniak, but because they just simply have a strict and really, really often racist picture of the Balkans as itself, and everything what comes from Balkans per se. The cliche is it's bad. It's bad in different views. So for me and my parents, it was eternal struggle. It still is, for me as a writer, to kind of get rid of this identity by embracing it. Also to say, of course, I like certain food and banal things. I like certain music, but that does not define me as what I'm worth or what I can do. And my book is basically this. I'm trying to present this paper figure of your protagonist and to say, look at this faceless face. You are giving it the attributes. You are saying what a woman should be. You are saying what a migrant should be. But let us decide. Let us be the in control of our lives. And I guess this book is my 42-year-old attempt to understand how definitions and defining us from society and from politics and from corrupt politicians are getting into us and actually influences our lives, even though it shouldn't.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And precisely talking about this, I love it that you're drinking coffee. I don't think people understand how Bosnians cannot function without, probably nobody can nowadays function without coffee, but there's this relationship we have with coffee, which I think is like blood.
For that, I mean, my parents are visiting us here, and it's a huge, it's like it's coffee time. So everybody just like, it's like, it's like for Germans, not heard bell. Suddenly everybody's in the living room drinking coffee, and not just like once a day or twice, and not to be awake. It's a way to say
communal experience,
exactly,
no? And you could stay with that one little finjan for like 2 hours.
and a lot has happened in the 2 hours before that, which needs to be told in these 2 hours with coffee.
Exactly. So going back to this idea of otherness, what I really liked in your book is that you really tackle this maybe this imperative that, being from Bosnia, we have to constantly talk about the war. And you're actually, there's one moment when you say, I have a lot of war stories down my sleeve, but I choose to talk about something else. And then sometimes you would choose to say that you're Slovenian, which for me was just, it was so funny at the same time, but it's also
helped. It's really helped.
It's kind of this, this kind of Balcans that the Europeans can stomach, because it's here, but it's not. It's the Alps, and you say, the Alps. But then there's this moment when somebody confuses Bosnia for Boston, which has happened to me so many times. People would ask me if I was from Boston, and your narrator, he plays with this, but also I think it's a nice comment of you as a writer to this question of, are we supposed to forever write about this conflict, about this war? Because on the one hand, it is our story, and it's the story we want to tell because it's part of our existence experience. On the other hand, how do you, avoid the risk of pleasing nice European readers with May Caber stories? Because just like a little digression, what happened to me in Italy, I accidentally met a countess. I don't know how that happened. I met a countess, and she was a well-read woman, and she talked about books a lot to everyone. And then she turns to me and she says, "And you're from Bosnia, And she sits right in front of me with her, with her little cup, and she says, "Was it really very bad?" And I realized in that moment, this woman, in a weird way, is enjoying this. This is what she wants from me. I'm not here to talk about James Joyce or whatever. No, COVID. No, I'm here to give her the gruesome details of the war. And I just felt for a second, is this what I'm doing as a writer? How do we escape this? No? So I'm just wondering how you deal with that. And I really like that you actually mentioned this in your book.
You actually, at least here, what I've been writing now, I don't know, my first book came out 2006, and I've been writing short stories and all different kinds of topics. And you cannot escape it. Actually, the audience is much as the countess here. No matter what your topics are, I wrote a novel which doesn't even mention Yugoslavia. It's set in the northeastern part of Germany in a small village. It's like it's like a little universe of Germany based in a rural, really, really beautiful, but kind of a strange area. So, and the first question that I would got from journalists, but what does it have to do with your origin? And you're like, nothing, absolutely nothing. How do you even, I mean, what kind of, I mean, it's actually a nice intellectual exercise. How do you even come to this question, reading a book that does not even mention it? Nowhere. So basically you cannot escape it. You can try to actively write against it, but why would you do that? Like, what, that would be kind of limiting yourself to kind of, I want to show that I'm a capable writer which does not need his bad past, sad past to write. Or you can always try to educate the audience and say, no, let's go back to the text and look what I'm actually talking about. So my way out in this book was actually to offensively, mention it, because in every single critic here, no matter how good it is, somewhere between the lines, it will say, and he learned German as a second language. Oh, what a task. And you're like, no, it's my fucking writer. This is my work, Everybody, every German writer has the same capability of playing with words, for example. What is always mentioned with my work, oh, he plays with words because he learned languages. No, I sit down and think about it, So I'm trying to kind of offensively joke about it, make also, connect with other writers from other countries who have the same. It's not the Bosnian thing. It's about a Persian writer has the same thing. He writes a book about social situation in the poor parts of Germany. But tell us about about Iran. Why would I tell you that? Let's talk about. So I don't think we can escape it, because we are still the others. No, we are still inside of the borders how we are supposed to be. When I have my readings, the first reader who comes to my table will say either, oh, I had a person who I knew who I took when he was refugee, or he will say, oh, I was in Croatia once at the coast. It was beautiful. So what? So I think the same is for you. Your book is really international. It starts in Ireland, and you move throughout Europe. You go through the Balkans. You end up in Vienna. So this is what books are actually about. We are capable of producing European literature, and we are capable of talking about topics which are much more microscopic, as the childhood, traumata, sexual freedoms, and all of this. But sometimes it just falls down as if our person as a writer is much more interesting than the thing that we are actually talking about. Yeah, and at the beginning I was really upset about it, but now I try to joke about it and try to kind of educate the one who's asking the question about how inappropriate maybe the question might be, without coming too close to hurt somebody. Maybe somebody's really genuinely interested in the war, so we can talk about
exactly. I mean, it just it reminds me, because another great Yugoslav writer, Danilo Kiš, wrote a lot about that he was in Paris, and he felt that, okay, we white Parisians, we can talk about anything. You should stick to your folklore.
Yeah.
And how violent that is for a writer. And then on the other hand, I met a Canadian writer who said, well, you're so lucky because you have so many things to talk about.
I would exchange this luck for everything in my world. I mean, these are the memories that we have to live with,
Exactly.
Growing up in a post-war Bosnia, living through the war.
I mean,
I would be glad to talk, to exchange these memories. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like it's some kind of envy of having gone through a crisis, but it's not a feeling of I'm trying to get rid of the crisis in myself by writing about it. So why is it? It's not a gift. It's not.
And also, like, we never talk about the way this is done, because there are many writers who have written about this war.
Yes.
In a very cliche, commonplace way, where you have the victim, the hero, the big story, almost a Hollywood kind of. And then, you can have Alice Munro in Canada also talking about a sort of personal crisis and doing it marvelously. So it's very strange when you come across this. Maybe it's part of this bigger trend of turning towards the author. Did this really happen? The autobiographical, is this person real? Where were you then, etc. But
we have to blame it on Knausgaard. He started in the recent times.
well, I blame everything on
really, I cannot believe it. But I know in my book I'm trying actually to kind of lure the reader into this belief that he's meeting an I, that I'm saying I, and I mean myself, but I'm also setting so many traps along the way in order to kind of make it harder to do this very easy identity reading, kind of to say, oh, this is an author, I will take everything granted what he tells me, he or she, and it will be easier on me because, oh my God, the poor child in the war. So it's nothing easier for an author to make a child look as a victim in a book. So it's like the most easy exercise at all. But I want the reader to be in every single time obvious that he is actually going on a very small thin line between fiction and non-fiction, between autobiography and dragons, so this is the kind of the book that we actually, I believe you are writing too, because you are also putting Banja Luka as a city into your book, which is recognizable for some, probably, or for some it would be hurtful maybe even, which is good, which I really like about it. Also, you are identifying Bosnia as this dark place. I have actually a very similar view on when I come to Visegrad, to my home place. I find not only the colors as like in a darkness way, but I find the mood is it has so changed. For my parents even more than for myself. I'm trying to describe this in the book, the last drive to the city, and there's those dogs, which group into the kind of herds. The electricity is down because it's always down, because there is money for important things, but not for infrastructure. So it has become dark in us, but it's also dark as really, really physical darkness. And when I've been to Visegrad the last time, people would say to me, well, why do you paint our city in this nervous, and I'm like, what? I mean,
look around you.
Yeah, didn't you see how this changed? I mean, no, like we have 72% unemployment of young people. 72%, like almost no. That is darkness. That is social, financial darkness. How can you not see it? Look at the facades. They were white ones. Look at them now. Look at what Kusturica built. This complete idiot. I mean, this is like. And it's, oh, you're correct, but why are you doing it? Because I would like things to be better for this city. I grew up here. This is my childhood, and I see it going to shit. So that's why I say it's going to shit. I would like to, literature cannot do much practically, but like make you maybe realize that there is something here. So I see that in your book too, that you're taking real problems, real biographical, probably, I don't know, and I don't actually care in that moment, but you're involving the real world into this fiction of yours, which I really, really loved. There's this, sorry, I really love your book. It's so seldom that I can be enthusiastic about literature.
This is a program where two Bosnian writers complement each other.
No, yeah, I'm so sorry about it, but I just need, this is my opportunity to tell you and the viewers. There's this one scene on the lake. There are two girls. They are making a rest in a coffee shop, a restaurant on the way to Vienna, and is it maybe even in Slovenia? No, they passed. They're actually already in Austria. Yes, because they heard the language they don't understand. So, and they were pursuing those two girls, and then the one girl gets I don't know, epileptic maybe attack or some kind of distress, but really like a fuzzily physical experience, and she breaks down on the ground, and everybody is completely like it's a. If your book was like an orchestral piece, that would be this one really important break, and where you kind of realize, oh my God, this is really now life and death. And then you catch me and you catch everybody else looking at the one girl while her friend is next to her and is actually probably even more in the inner emotional pain, And this is how literature should work. It should surprise us how we look at things. It should change our perspectives on biography, on body sickness, on body itself, on sex, on all the matters that you are speaking about. And this little scene is so exclusive. And I actually shut down my ebook because I was like, no, she got me here. I was concerned about this. Of course I am. Yeah. And then you switch as a writer the viewpoint to the other girl who is actually the same witness as we are. This is literature. This is great literature. I really, thank you for that.
No, thank you. And I could really relate to what you were saying about the way people responded to your book in Visegrad. And
Did you have the same to Banja Luka?
Exactly the same. And what I love is that, of course, it takes another one to see it. But what you said about the darkness, everybody was like, this metaphorical darkness. And I was like, no, it's okay. It is a metaphor, but it is actually dark. I mean, there are streets in Banja Luka without, city lights and without electricity.
Buildings like you go where my grandmother lived. There was, I think, the last 5 years, there was no way that there was something as much broken that you could not repair it. Electricians would come and they were just like, this building does not want light. So you would actually turn on your battery on your phone, or my grandmother had like the handheld battery. Yes. To climb to the 3rd floor because she is actually complete darkness inside, So it's true.
Yeah, everybody had those flashlights. yeah, that's a good detail. But yeah, and then there's also, I don't know if, I mean, you live in Germany, but going back, has it happened to you? I have been called a traitor. Mm-hmm. That not just because I portray Banja Luka in a very dark way and there are such beautiful things there, etc., but also because I do belong, or they put me in the Serb category.
Yeah.
So you are from Bosnia, but you are Serbian, and there's always somebody who's constantly explaining to you what you are. And this violence of just pinning this one identity on you, where as I always say, a Bosnian is not a national identity, and that's what I love about it. A Bosnian is a citizen.
Exactly.
Can be anything, literally anything. And this is something that I think Bosnia is the last republic of the Yugoslav republics where actually Bosnian does not mean nationality, because now you have Serbia, Croatia, it's all, but there's always somebody who wants to pin this on you and tell you, no, but you as a Serb, don't you know what also happened to us, etc.
Yeah, it's all the whataboutism. I had the most of it last year. I did when Peter Handke was declared to become a new Nobel Prize winner last year. There was a large critical protest about his work connecting to former Yugoslav countries, Serbia and Bosnia. And when I did, I tried to pinpoint problematic parts of his work where he basically gives the guilt to the victims, where he changes the facts in order to ideologically say that the Serbs could not do anything else but to do the revenge. That's also revenge as a motive for killing. So I was trying to pinpoint that in his work and say, how can you give the most important prize in literature, knowing that this means a lot to the people in the countries, to the victims, but also to people who will say, you see, if they give him the prize, then he's right. So who read literature as a kind of manifesto of truth. And that's where I got the examples that you were saying. How can somebody with a name as mine, Sasha, a Serb name, it's just it's so stupid. So, but how can he turn his back on us? He's one of us. How can he criticize Handke for his? It's not even pro-Serb, because Serbians are criticizing too. It's like nationalistic Serb. So where you notice, no matter what you write and what you say and how objective you're trying to be, and how I'm showing here, and this is the sentence where he apologizes genocide. This is the sentence where he, in my own hometown, is misreading the fact. No, you're not a reader anymore. You're not a writer anymore. You're just this subject of ethnicical, perspective on the world. You are a Serb. You have to be pro this. And this is also the question that you asked before. How can you rid of that? You no matter what you do, the origin that you got through your name, your birth, is kind of sticks on you like this. For one people is a privilege to go as a white male through Europe and do whatever they want and nobody cares, and for others it's just this curse and that they have to carry it for. You can't. I don't know. It's like sometimes I find it's a fight and you cannot win because the others are always more aggressive and more present than you yourself. I don't know how you see that, but it's a hard fight to fight.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and also what you said about, how because you care about Visegrad, you want to see it better. And actually pinpointing problems means that you care. Yes. It's what a doctor does.
Yes, exactly.
A good doctor will not say everything is fine with you. And then, it turns out you're terribly sick. No, it's like we are there to actually take this lamp, this flashlight, and turn it. Okay, this is beautiful, but let's turn it to this dark corner.
It is. I really don't understand. I wrote a short story recently, Drina, the river. For the, I know you know. This is for all those
viewers.
There's beautiful rivers in Bosnia, and one of them is Drina. It goes through Visegrad, and before, just like maybe 15, 20 kilometers before the city, there is a dam, huge dam. And there's electricity works there, and this dam has created a dam not only for the water but also for garbage. It's an unbelievable amount of plastic bottles and whatever. People are throwing them, and the rains spill the garbage into the river, and it all accumulates in this artificial lake before the dam. So I wrote a story where I actually wrote about there was a scene of children playing basically in this garbage. It's like a huge sea of garbage, and I got so many angry reactions from them. Why do you write about the garbage? Because I want it gone. I want somebody to do something about it. I've also called people there and tried to tell them, what are you doing? So this is my means of saying this beautiful river, as you said, doctor is actually diagnosing something that everybody is seeing, is sick, is getting sick. So let's do something about it. I'm not saying because I want to make fun of it or I want to, I'm just pinpointing this as a huge problem for the environment of this river, for the fish, for the birds, for the people. Yeah. So, and why are you mentioning it? You cannot hide it. I mean, everybody sees it. You can see it from the space. I mean, come on.
But people take a lot of things personally. And I guess, especially in the Balkans, there's always this idea that if you criticize one thing, you're criticizing everything. You're criticizing their core being. You can only talk about the good things. And I think, okay, here you talk about the garbage in the river, but even when you talk about the war, it's this inability to say, we also did this.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that we are all of us intrinsically evil. No, it means that everybody is capable of everything, and we did this.
Yes, exactly.
So it doesn't mean that this didn't happen to us, etc. And I think this your example of this short story is very good because it actually also represents this. It's this inability to see the garbage.
Exactly. Don't mention it. Don't mention it. Yeah. There is this one scene in Fawlty Towers. I don't know if you know this is like a series in the 670s in England where there's this guy who leads a hotel, and he's this really funny guy, and he has Germans as guests, and then he says to all of it crew, don't mention the war, don't mention the war. But then he gets I think he swallows some pills and he gets all alcohol and everything, and then he tries to imitate Hitler and everything, and then he comes out, and I said I think I might have mentioned it once or so. And it was like the guests are completely traumatized and leaving the hotel and everything. So this is like, don't talk about the elephant in the room. Don't talk about the problems. They will solve by themselves like they did in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what I did. And I think literature, I'm always it's very tiresome to talk about the role of literature, but I sometimes think that actually it might be well to put a finger into the wound sometimes, even though I'm really not a friend of those kind of moral but if I find something as a problem, I kind of want it to play a role because it plays a role for me as a person. So it plays for me as a role as a writer. And I don't want to it's not a Handlungsanweisung. It's not like a call to action or something. It's just like sometimes I even think this garbage scene was a scenery. Actually, it was like this idyllic childhood in garbage. So it was like a stage,
Yeah.
So but I think sometimes things that literature should be should do that, should pinpoint these kind of inadequacies between our perception of world and perception of world who are actually affected by it.
Yeah. No, when you were describing the scene, it also to me looked like this medieval painting almost.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of, still life, you have still garbage. I mean,
colors are beautiful.
Another theme that you and I both deal with is the legacy of Yugoslavia.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also like, we have the whole nationalistic bunch of writers doing their thing, but then there's also these writers who kind of only write about this idealized Yugoslavia. Everything was perfect. We had the perfect cars. We didn't. They were okay. And this is what
they were okay.
They did the job.
They did the
and
job.
That's so there's this idealization, and obviously writing about the war, you also have to deal with this big nostalgic picture. What do you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Nostalgia is a tricky thing to work with. And what I really loved in your book, there's this scene where these people, these expats, we are all expats as Yugoslavs, but where these nostalgics meet.
Oh, yes.
To celebrate the Day of Youth. I don't know what the English.
No, it's actually Day of Republic. It's the
Republic. Yeah, but remember we used to call it Dan Mladosti, no?
Yeah, Dan Mladosti.
Yeah, but they meet on the 29th of November.
29th of November. I think the Day of Youth was 25th of May.
So. May was the and they meet on the 29th of November. But then in the same place, there is some sort of congress of gynecologists going on, and there's this. I mean, it's to me, it's like almost like this great Russian literature, when this just kind of out of nowhere, it's like they summoned Tito back to life, except it's just a gynecologist who confused the room, appears there. And it's like, okay, I have no idea. I was just trying to put myself in the head of this man, and suddenly the reader is outside looking at this nostalgia, and you see that there's something beautiful and sad and almost childish in it. It's like you see this convention of Star Wars fans, and suddenly we are in the gynecologist's head looking at them. Okay,
going backwards out of the
I'm just gonna
bye.
And to me, this was such a powerful, you don't need 500 pages talking about what it means to be nostalgic for this time. It was such a powerful detail. But you have to write about it. On the other hand, I'm sure you have also encountered people who have told you, but it was a dictatorship. I mean, for me, especially in Spain, because of course they've had their share of dictators.
Dictatorship.
Exactly. Trying to talk about Yugoslavia as something good was very difficult, and they would tell me, no, but it was a dictatorship, and that's where the story ends. So how do you deal with this, talking about Yugoslav legacy, not idealizing it, but actually showing it as obviously better than what we have today? What is your approach?
I rely a little bit on kind of a scenic storytelling. In two of my books, which has had Yugoslavia as a topic on a larger scale, I'm trying to create scenes in like the one that you just described, where I can put the reader, who I have to assume does not have the same political and historical background as we do, in order to provide him in a scenic way with some insights before I actually go over to problematic things. So maybe I would describe it as a kind of a not really happy way of dumbing down the story into a scene, but this scene has to be powerful enough and informative enough in order to provide also some background on whatever issue I want to describe. I remember then that when I wrote my first novel, How the Soldier Repairs the Gramophone, I needed the reader to understand that how the violence came to us, and I needed to objectively describe all those people who said we didn't know about it, because there were some. I needed those who knew about it but didn't tell anything. I needed those who were accomplices. So I'm just saying that to say I needed a whole different levels of wisdom on our side to tell them the experience of war becoming reality in Yugoslavia was not the same for everybody. So in order to do that, I would not like create a theoretical approach to how the nationalism developed through the years and whatever, but I would try in small scenes, one in a childhood manner. What was it for us in school to suddenly be asked, what are you? How was it for my mother to first encounter her ethnicity as something problematic for some people? So I would kind of install different levels of information before I would hit them with the whole absurdity of all of this going down to the war. So basically, I write for sometimes I have the sense of all the audience who I kind of have to give a little help to, because I know that my first reader would not be the Yugoslav reader who knows much more or thinks to know more, but the German reader who really actually needs some information. And then the nostalgia is kind of easy to avoid. I can admit, and I can say I know where my nostalgia, the roots are. I can openly talk about them in a session with you guys and everybody. I could definitely say what I miss and what was good. But I could also, try to provide that for different perspectives, for protagonists that I don't share this nostalgia with me, but I can kind of, understand it, what you miss, what you don't miss, what you found nice. And in this scene that you described, I am basically on the side of the nostalgics, because the theories and the values that they are trying to live with, the brotherhood and help the weak and be brothers and sisters, no matter where you come from, they actually mingle together. And I like that. This kind of Macedonia goes to bed with somebody from Montenegro, which is a simple, beautiful thing, So I'm on their side, and I openly admit that in this chapter. I say, look at these values. Of course, we can laugh about them. They are old. They will die out. Yugoslavia is just a projection for them.
Genuine. They were genuine values. Actually, sorry, you just got me like excited.
No, please.
But when you read the declaration, the anti-fascist declaration, I mean, we are a country that had an anti-fascist declaration.
Yes.
And you can see, I think it's a copy in Jajce, where it's not about Yugoslavs. It's about all the people.
Exactly.
All the people. As if we share the same values, which are freedom for everyone, love, respect, it's open to everyone. And I'm every time I try to explain this, there's always some nice European looking at me like, oh my God, look at this.
Yeah, it's I know, but also what I find important about this issue is that when I was writing this book, we had in Germany projections that the far right party will get around 17% of votes. They were really, really, really riding on an anti-migrant, anti-Muslim, anti-globalization wave. They were really, really hitting the asylum homes here in Germany were burning. We had over 1,000 attacks on people living in. It was like a complete hell. And when I was writing this chapter, there was a politician from an actually liberal party here, which are not even far right, who wrote a tweet saying anti-fascists are also fascists. Trying to do this, it is just unbelievable. I can't, because you just said it, declaration is a declaration against fascism, actually. So, And when writing about Yugoslavia and the pre-war nationalism rise, and also the rise in motions that you are better than somebody else because you were born different than somebody else, I noticed that we have the same discussions in Germany. So the arrogance to say, look at Yugoslavia, what happened there, but also to see here that you have 70% of people in Germany ready to vote for far-right party. Is unbelievable bliss, you know. So in writing about Yugoslavia, I always had in mind, wait a second, when you look at the rhetoric of the far right, you will find the same rhetoric in Izetbegovic, Milosevic in the 90s.
Exactly.
It's the same ground and blood and all of this, you know, in the medieval ages, very popular semantics and rhetoric. So by writing about this, I don't even have that feeling that I'm kind of indulging in too much too much. You have look at the repetition and what are you doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's this kind of, I think Alexander Hammond, another Bosnian expat who writes in English, actually also kind of predicted a lot of the things that are happening in the States
Yes.
based on his experience in Bosnia, which are very simple steps that go from this paranoia and fear of the other to this kind of having this kind of figure mobilizing these very dangerous groups.
Yes.
It's not, we have seen this, we should know better.
Exactly.
So and for me, this making this connection in your book was really powerful, because it also serves to show this is not something that happens in some other country, the Balcans, that you will never visit, in the 90s out there. This can happen everywhere. At
Look at
any
Hungary.
point, no matter how educated the people are, no matter how well off, no, it can happen anywhere. So we have to be careful, constantly careful, not to allow. And it starts with language.
Definitely.
It always starts. I remember, I mean, being a little girl in Banja Luka and being safe, because I had the privilege of being considered Serbian. But I remember how in the newspaper, slowly, our neighbors were no longer our neighbors. They were Muslims. Then they were referred to as the Mojahedeens, the Talibans, and the language just got worse and worse and worse until these people were almost dehumanized. And this is how you then justify an ethnic cleansing. I mean, we have seen this happen over and over again, and it always starts with language. Since we don't have a lot of time left, there's one question that I absolutely must ask, and it has to do with the narrative and with the story, is that you do this amazing thing by the towards the end of the book. I suppose it's the last 50 pages or so, where you do the choose your own adventure. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but I think it's going to make people actually wanna, where the grandmother, we haven't even talked about the grandmother, who's probably my favorite character.
I have so many questions for you.
But the grandmother, who's so much alive, and you don't have this this kind of patronizing attitude towards her, as in, no, she's this very much strong, alive female character. At the same time, to me, she kind of stands for an entire era that is just disappearing. And the way you are trying to capture that and stay with her and keep her alive in the text by always offering us another option. And then, of course, the text gets magical. There's I was thinking, I'm going to be that smart reader, I'm going to choose this option because I'm sure that option is like, no, it's that anywhere you go, you end up arriving at the same place. But then there's this beauty that literature can offer us, So if you could just tell us a bit about that, why did you decide to use this how does it connect to the story? It's not just a gimmick to say, oh, look, this is a cute thing to do. It actually has a lot to do with the story. If you could just talk a bit about that.
Sure. It's definitely my favorite part of the book, and the one that I like the most, because I could go into the genre. It's basically based on those choose your own adventure books, which most of them have sci-fi or fantasy background with dragons, as in my case, or elves and orcs or whatever. And I loved those when I was a child. Some of those were translated into Serbo-Croatian back then. Later, when I was a little bit older, I could read them in English. Actually, the base, let's say, if I wanted to answer a question for myself with my book Origins, it would be what constructs me as a man that I am today. What kind of origins or what kind of identity questions have led to me lead this life right now. So I go back to family origins, I go back to social financial origins, I go back to even the pre-familiar, the ones that I even don't know nothing about, like my grandmother and grandfather. But I also go to places which had meaning for me. I go back to Visegrad, I go back to Heidelberg, where we came as refugees to Germany. So I'm constructing a web of meaning, and this web of meaning is constructed of people, places, and memories, and all that then together. That was my I didn't know that beforehand, but they form this kind of a oklop, knightly armor around me. I'm not a knight, but I'm like, this is me. This is what I'm going through the world with all the flaws and failures and everybody. But what I noticed in the work, in the research, is that mostly there were other people involved on the crucial places in my life, which with their genuine tolerance of mine and my family's well-being or being itself, with their want to help, with their going out of their way in order to make our lives easier, had made my way lead to us having this conversation right now, me becoming a writer. So it was not those who put the borders between us and try to say it's the ethnicity in you that works against yourself, but those who embrace you no matter what you are. It sounds kind of pathetical right now, but that was the case in my life. Those people helped my family and me survive, helped us thrive and become live a normal life so now we come to this choose your own adventure. So I have this aspect of origin, which is not something old, not a memory, it's people who decide for you. A bus driver who takes me and my mom over the border because he feels that he can help, so he does that. So how can literature reproduce this kind of destiny taking in the hands of others? It has very limited possibilities. So the one possibility is to give the director's camera or director's piece into the hands and eyes of the readers, and they can decide where they want the story to go on. So I give them opportunities. So as the people in my family and me gave us opportunities to decide what they want to read, I give them small pre-versions of the chapter that they will read, and then they can decide. Most of the time, sometimes I don't give them any opportunity. It's an illusion of having a little bit of power about the story.
But then also you invoke responsibility.
Definitely,
and this is what I love, that as a reader, you're reminded of the responsibility of choosing.
Absolutely. And the construction of that literature always is that you're constructing something. Like you, when you in your book, you sometimes say, oh, let's go back. This is I would like to go back to change the story, but I can't. This is the story. Or when you the narrator is being told, listen, Sarah, I don't want stories to always have point. Why do you do that? So you are kind of meta talking about storytelling, and this is also choose your own adventure is a kind of a storytelling. But also, and that's maybe the most important thing for me, my grandmother was like a beacon of light all my life. Even though she was not with me for the last half or more of my life, she was, as you said, this grandmother of Yugoslavia, always at this one place. As a young child, as a woman, not being able to go to school, not being let to go to school, and having a husband who was, all parties, never did anything in the household. This biography of having to endure so much of patriarchal society that we had, but always having kind of a even though she is probably inside has been a lot of pain, maybe even having a positive side on her. So I was trying, she died while I was writing the book. What can I do? I have to take her with me. The only way I can take her into is literature. There she can be alive. And there she can be with her husband where she wanted to be in the end of her life. Yeah. So this is for me what literature may sometimes able to be, kind of on the paper at least, and then in our heads, to heal something, to make something whole. And even though it's maybe just an illusion, for me, it was so important to spend this time with her, listen to the tapes of our conversation. What did she say? I can put this into the story, and keep her like voice and character alive for a bit longer. And that helped me.
That is remarkable. I mean, I have to say that by that point, I did cry a bit. I normally don't cry, but it's just the way you did it. And I also, I mean, for me, this idea that literature, a text, can immortalize something and keep it alive. You did it with Choose Your Own Adventure, which I found just brilliant. I wanted to do a circle so that the ending connects to the beginning, and then it never stops.
You know what I did first when I read your book to the end? I looked for htjela sam, if you find where it, and I found two very unsatisfying. Oh, no, I want it to be a circle. Go take me back. But this is also something you like. I was glad that it was not a circle at the end, because this is htjela sam, and then I had like 100 thoughts. What did she actually want? This is how it works in myself.
I mean, it's just it's beautiful how text can give us this out of space and out of time experience. Well, Saša, we could talk for, I think, 5 hours.
I have an offer. Let's do this. I will write to your publishing house in Germany, and let's do this a little bit other way around. I would like to do an event for you when your book comes out here. If you'd like to talk again.
That is great. Also, we can talk outside of. That's also an option. Definitely, I should be in Germany this year finally at some point. So then we can organize something. And let's hope one day in Barcelona too.
Yes.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Bibliotecas de Barcelona, Angla Editorial, Periscopi Editorial, and just to our viewers, keep reading Yugoslav writers, because we rock. Okay, bye, Saša.
Bye, Lana.